This is Swindle. We're now in the AMR studio for Future Music. I'm about to show you a track called Connecta, which I recorded in Brazil. So this is the overall project. It looks like lots of parts, but that's mostly just because of layering, especially with the percussion and the horns. I believe when we started the track, we started with percussion. We kind of had no rules to what we was going to record. And I was really looking to the percussionist to kind of guide me through the history of Brazilian rhythm, really. That's something that I was really interested in and something that I wanted to capture. I kind of see Brazil as, you know, one of the birthplaces of all popular rhythm. So I think this is in order of recorded, and we started with the congas. That was on 2 mics. You can hear one over there. And there's a load of clicking on it. I mean, it was recorded on good mics and through good converters, so there isn't really much going on that channel, but panning, a little bit of compression and EQ. I used Logic stuff with the plan to kind of come home and elaborate on what I'd put on. But that rarely happens, and I end up having projects just with kind of the immediate processing that I did in the recording to keep things moving. We'll start building up this section. That's my favorite. Bit of cowbell. Bit of shaker. So we recorded this as like a super long take, maybe like 3 minutes, and I just kind of cut up, and that was like the basis of the track. That's kind of where it started. Again, all just kind of panning. Look, I've even used a Logic preset there. Just some simple spread. Simple stuff, really. I've got that. Basically, my whole session is summed into this right here, which is the Audience Sumo. I like the sound that it gives. It enables me to bring it out the box. I know a lot of people kind of use sound inside the box and then process it outside, whereas I kind of like my kit to be about creativity, so I collect things like keyboards and stuff that makes sounds as opposed to processing units. And then just some out of this brings me back to analog and gives me a sound that I like, and just makes the mix sound much easier. All my sums come out away from the red, and I generally record back in before master at about, I want my highest peak to be no more than -2 dB. But that's just the way I work. I don't know what's correct. I've never read up on it or anything like that. So I have my percussion channels here. I've sent them all out to outputs 5 and 6, which is over here. And on that, I have another compressor, little radiator by Sound Toys. It just gives it some heat. I quite like the sound of distortion, and if I can get that without actually just, you know, having a distorted channel, I like to, and plugins like Little Radio help me get that. a little bit of EQ, just rolling off the bottom and giving a little bit of top. Again, really simple stuff. And then this plugin, which a friend put me onto, called Track Spacer, which kind of works like a sidechain, but instead of dipping volume or compressing, it takes out the frequency. So I've got that set to output 1112. You can see it's probably staying out the way of further percussion or drums. What we've got coming out of 11 and 12. All right, so that dips for my kit, which is here. So I do have my drums going into a drum bus with just a simple SSL compressor on it. And I've done that to just kind of beef it up, but rather than send all my drums into something like that, I'll send it as a bus and then try and get a mix between the two to a point where I'm comfortable with. And kind of those together make up my rhythm section. Again, super simple stuff on the drum stems themselves. Nothing really more than compression, EQ, and reverb. I really like this reverb, the Valhalla, if that's how you say it, Valhalla room. On my snare and on a big clap, like so. So this gives me 8 stereo inputs. I use 7 because I keep 2 spare just in case I want to do any processing, because I've run out of inputs and outputs. Generally I don't. I used to use it for this, for drums, and D-Bit it's just like super normal compressor, but that kind of sits dormant. I bought that to replace this Alesis 3630, which I love and I've kind of had it forever. It's cheap, it's easy, but I still use it all the time. But I've actually ended up using that to control the input of all my keyboard racks. I especially like the noise gate on it. When dealing with some of these keyboards, the noise gate comes in handy, and it just gives me one kind of volume control. So what I do, I've got my 6, 1, 2, 3, that's 5, and 6 going into here, also MIDI'd up, and then that goes all into the Alesis 3630, and that's how I end up using that. But I keep an output spare off of this just in case, and then that gives me my mix, and this is what I record back my master from, just to clarify on that. So after we kind of got our drums down, we looked for a musical element, and we started kind of with the guitar. Me and Bruno, who played the guitar on it, sat at the piano, if I recall, and we recorded the following parts. Where's my guitar channel? I don't name my my sums as well as I should. It's always the thing I forget to do, is name my channels. So these are all my guitars. This is opening up for a filter freak. Simple automation on it. It's also got a multi-pressor on it. Can't quite remember why. Renaissance plucky. I really like this preset for guitars. We actually mic'd a recording this guitar. We didn't use an input. We mic'd an amp. So there is loads of fuzz all over it, which I like to a point, but I found myself, you know, kind of contending with it a little bit, which is why I've taken off a lot of the top, because it was really just full of white noise and stuff at the top. We recorded the first kind of guitar chords, rhythms, I don't know how you'd really call that. I generally open and close that through a filter throughout the track, just to give it some kind of build. But the main guitar line, which was my favourite bit, is that it? Right. That's pretty much as it was, as we recorded it. Waves, guitar ramp, just for a bit of warmth, simple stuff, and some reverb, and again some EQ. But I added a channel to that guitar rig, and I got the harmonizer on it, harmonic synthesizer. I use this a lot on loads of stuff that it shouldn't be used on. I just like the sound of it. So from this, that gave me this, which I've called Guitar Creep. Just gives it another texture. So when I play them together, and it's also like panned quite heavy to the left. And then I've got another one with an octaver on it, which I've since got the real one. I think that sounds quite a bit nicer, but so we've played that one on its own. And again, opens up. Just all about trying to bring that drama. So I believe I've got reverb automated on that, and I've got the kind of the octave with all the top end off it, and it kind of gives this effect. With the original on top. That reverb is our very standard guitar line octave room reverb. It's just Space Designer Logic. Yeah, again, you know, I've got you know, UAD stuff and the lexicon that I really like to use, but because I record this in a different environment using my laptop, which has very limited plugins on it, everything's just about getting ideas down and using what I had at the time. And then that just ends up staying, you know. Always plan to just refine things, but once you've got used to the way something sounds, just end up using it. So the guitar and percussion together, what output is the guitar? And then all of a sudden I knew I was in Brazil, you know what I mean? Little breakdown, bring the drums in. Most of the live elements. There's two basses on this track. One being a super simple kind of 808. I'm using this, I forget who makes it. It's not like a Native Instruments plugin, but it works with Contact. It's just got like a variation of different 808s. You can change the release sustain. There is some more control in it, but that's way too much reading for me, so I just kind of mess around here. Nice and distorted, as I like them, ready for the club. So the distortion mostly is coming from the patch, which is called Dirty 808. I suppose it just does what it says on the tin. And then I've got it going through an R bass, and I picked the big bottoms preset and then messed around between the intensity and the gain until it was somewhere where I liked, but I don't think much has really changed from the preset on that. And I presume a lot of that was to do with trying to get some consistency between the 808 and the double bass that I recorded. Also, the double bass I cut up a lot, so it probably clicks a lot because I'm lazy and I haven't got rid of all my clicks. We'll play that section. Again, this was with two mics. No, two recordings, one mic and one DI. I believe that I made a balance in a different project and then exported it into one piece of audio just to kind of simplify this project as much as I can. That has nothing but a noise gate on it, and again the R bass, which is to the exact same settings as the 808 bass. And that kind of introduces a new section if we go from one to the other with the drums and the guitars in. So I'll just play kind of the bass changing from the MIDI 808 over to the double bass. Which I'd like to record a lot more double bass, but you don't stumble across double bass players very often at the moment. With the guitars, it's all 808. Over to the double bass. So a lot of this was based around a song, but what I'll show you next is my favourite bit is horns and flutes. So I kind of decided that the guitar line was my favourite part. The horns actually recorded in the UK with members of my band I play live as Swindle live, and this was these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 channels, 12 channels. Was recorded by 2 people. I'll go through that. I love muted trumpet, so that's the first thing we did. So we had our guitar line with a muted trumpet on top. Plenty of trill. Lots of bows. Again, super simple EQ, nothing crazy. Taken off the bottom, taken a little bit off the top. Just make sure it's behaving with a compressor. A little bit of reverb on the bus. I've set up a bus that's pitched to -12. It just kind of thickens it up. If muted trumpet and flutes as a texture I really like. There's 3 flute parts on this. Loads of reverb, Valhalla room again. Going to the same bus with the -12 just a little bit. Again, simple EQ. It's all very simple really. I just try and make the, creating the music, I'd rather that be the complicated part, like writing the arrangements. And when creating music, I try to let go of the science and the technical part as much as I can, so I can just concentrate on having fun and making music and kind of fix it up later. But I also believe that if the parts are good in the first place, then the mix is easier, and I find myself having to do much less processing. Whereas in the past, where I'd made music that was way more software driven, using soft synths and samples and stuff, I found myself having to do so much more processing to get a sound that I like. Whereas if I record something live, mic something, I get a sound closer to what I'm happy with. So we've got muted trumpet, flute, and then we have tenor sax. The tenor sax really gives body to the whole thing. Wait, we'll get rid of those last trumpets. Here comes the tenor. There's absolutely nothing on those channels, but there is on the bus. It goes through the same bus as all the horns, so it's got the same kind of EQ on it. I've added a little bit of warmth from the tenor. Sometimes horns can sound quite thin depending on what you're recording them on, and there's a massive difference to what a horn will sound like in the room than as a recording. And I really like the in-room sound, especially with the lower registers of some of these instruments. Sometimes that gets lost when recording on a mic that just doesn't give you the frequency range or the feeling of what you get when you're in a room and listening to like a trombone or a baritone sax. So I've added a little bit around there. I guess it just gives it a bit of warmth. And I've got all my tenors over here, and then I've got my trumpets over there. I'll add the trumpets now. What I'm going to do actually, that bus with the -12, I end up putting loads of stuff through it. I mean, it's more for style than it is for anything technical, but I ended up making the outro for the track out of this kind of pitched down horn section. So without the -12, and then with, it just gives it body. This section is loads of really obvious sound effects from all the sample packs that we know and love. Again, it's there for effect. A lot of it is dry, or I've got a flanger on it just to kind of give it some kind of movement. Simple EQ. Again, less is more. I've got a big impact, and I've got the track space on it as well, so it kind of gives you the tail and avoids the kick drum as it drops right here. Crash. I'll play the effects on their own, perhaps with the drum roll. So that's all coming out of the stereo output. I'll do that without the guitars. Real simple, we all know it. That rise, I think I made on the Gaia. It's got a tremolator on it. Real simple stuff. I think I've got a, yeah, so the original sound is off the Gaia. I will use like obvious, like, you know, what they call the Ven effects and stuff like that for the hits and rises, but I do make some myself and try and at least the track won't depend on those sample packs, but I'll use them where they're useful. This is that rise effect without the pitch shifting and the tremolator. Simple stuff. 2 oscillators moving at different times on the Gaia, and then with this, the shift gives it way more drama. With the tremolator, which kind of works with some of the other elements. There's not much MIDI in this project because a lot of the instruments are acoustic or were recorded live. But I did record a piano part. I was actually just messing about for a Facebook video. I'd open up the project first thing in the morning and I was just kind of jamming along in my dressing gown and put up a Facebook video, and I ended up using that piano part as actually part of the track. It just kind of complements everything else. Compressor. Look, on piano preset. The piano is upright piano contact. I like that sound. We've got a bit of latency because there's so much going on in this project. I hate latency, but it's unavoidable at mix stage sometimes. There's a lot of channels in this project. So during the process of kind of coming up with these ideas and just basically jamming in studio, Ricardo, our vocalist, was writing. We're talking about you know, different concepts and stuff. I've got such an interest in how music can connect people from such far places. You know, when you come from a place where people don't really know much about outside the town you're from, and then you find yourself meeting all these different people from so many different places, it really, you really get an idea of all the things that we have in common as humans on the planet, main thing being music. So kind of the intent of the song is to kind of highlight that. It generally talks about, you know, how London and Sao Paulo can groove to the same drum. He recorded the vocals in a very traditional style. I think it's a North Brazilian style. I think the town's called Baio, where it actually this technique comes from, which was super cool. It really reminded me of a lot of stuff that we do in our music over here nowadays. Kind of they've been doing for such a long time. I'll play the whole vocals. So, CLA vocals. Again, it was recorded on a good mic through good converters. So there wasn't really much for me to do once I got it into the computer, but just control it. this is just super easy. I mean, a bunch of people might think I'm crazy just only having 1 or 2 plugins on my main vocal, but I don't care, man. If it sounds good, and I'm ready to roll with it. Noise gate, just in case, but I have kind of like cut out the big obvious breaths and stuff and give fade downs. But my favorite bit of these vocals is the BVs.
Vem cá, vem ver. São Paulo Connecta.
So on those, I've got a H delay, a little bit of reverb, and I've taken some of the bottom off. Again, super easy. And that kind of makes up the vocal section of the whole track, really.
Epa, hep. Malé de malé. Vem cá, vem ver. London vai tremer. São Paulo Connecta. Música vem ver. Vou ver cê fazer. Música bem. Pra você ver. Música te conecta. Que tom vai ser. Não sabe, desperta. Pra você.
And a bit of delay for good measure. Take us into our kind of breakdown. Everything together. Very last thing I recorded was live drum kit. This is the overheads, panned hard left and right on a fade in. Again, compressor, all the bottom taken off. With EQ, I try to just take away more than I add, and if I do add, it's very like, it's not, you know, I don't like adding spikes or anything too intense. I don't like to hear that EQing is being done. So if I want to take off the bottom, I try and give a big slope. And if I'm trying to raise a little bit here, I'll try and make it as rounded as possible so it doesn't sound too intense. Whether that's correct again or not, I don't know, but that's what we do. I also recorded a tom track for like kind of the second breakdown and build up. Three mics on 3 toms. Bottoms rolled off of each. I have actually treated these toms differently. Thing with live drums is that, you know, your kick drum picks up a little bit of your snare, and your snare picks up a little bit of your hat, and your hat picks up a little of your cymbal. So I do find myself noise gating and removing things with EQ a lot. Tom 1. Because those bits are bleed of the other toms. Tom 2. Tom 3. And then with the overheads. I often do flex things kind of just left and right to get the groove right, but I didn't need to here. So that, along with our silly sound effects. All right, I muted too much there, but and that's kind of like the main body of the track. This was the most difficult track to end. Originally it was like 7 or 8 minutes because I just had loads of fun kind of letting the loop play out, and I wanted to maybe even do a fade down thing. Just kind of over here. Everything going super messy, just groove out time, last tune of the set. But then kind of changed my mind last minute and took a bounce of all that pitch down stuff that I was doing earlier and made what I'd like to think is a way more interesting outro, and kind of take it back to London for a bit. So that's the vocals and all the horns at -12 with a new drum kit coming out of a filter, probably something really super. Normal, look, 1 knob filter opening up. And that is the track. That last 808 kit, the plan was to break it down and mix it as I would the rest of the track. But I ended up just using kind of just the battery output with an 808 kit that I think I made. Those are just loads of different variations of the same thing. I just used loads of reverb on it. I did consider making a whole new track out of this section, but for now it's just the outro. And then that's it. Below here I've got kind of those sums recorded as audio. That's what I used to give to DJ Q, who did a remix of it. And that's what I'll use when preparing this track for my live show. And there we have it. That's Connecta, really. Okay, I'm Swindle. I hope you enjoyed the session. Check out swindletrilogy.com for the music. Peace and love.